Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome to my Tiny Talks podcast, the show where we'll dive into self-love, inner child healing, and discovering your soul's purpose. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's Tiny Talk. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my Tiny Talks podcast. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am, as always, pumped, excited, thrilled, over the moon, excited to be here with you all. In this episode, we are going to be diving into number 49, which is even crazy to say out loud. And in today's episode, we are going to be diving into why it's so important to always be who you are, no matter who you are around, where you are, what you're doing, and the benefits of just staying true to yourself regardless of external environments and people and places and things. We are all so guilty of adapting who we are to fit in, to feel comfortable, to be a part of something. But what if those things are holding us back? What if those things in pretending to be something else is veering us away from our optimal, highest version of ourselves? What if we are only doing ourselves a disservice by pretending to be things and people that we are not? And so without further ado, I am so excited to dive in with you guys of why you should always be who you are, no matter who you're around. So when it comes to being yourself, we really do live in a society with a ton of pressure from the outside world to be a certain thing, to wear a certain thing, to act a certain way, to listen to a type of music, to be into the same things, right? We all go through society doing the same things, going to school, going to university, getting a job, getting a car, having the white picket fence, having a family, whatever it is. There is just a ton of pressure for us to be a certain thing, and pressure from the outside world as it tries to influence who we are as people. You would be amazed when you take a step back and realize how all these external things in your life influence small decisions in your life. Even just small things as far as looking at the cover of a magazine, hearing an ad on YouTube, hearing a song on the radio. Everything is constantly influencing us from the time we come into this world till the time that we leave. But it's so important that we recognize who we are humbly at the core and sticking to that and honoring that for ourselves. Because living in a world that is constantly developing, it's important for you to always remain yourself from the inside out. Because with a world that is constantly changing and evolving, the one thing that we can control is who we are at the core, how we show up, and how we hold ourselves. And so this episode came up for me because it's just something that I notice happening a lot, where specifically social media, I'll see someone portraying a certain thing, and we're all guilty of this on social media, where we like to glorify our life, right? We don't really post those times in our life that we're feeling down or less than, or we're going through something, but we do post those times that, you know, we're at the beach, or we're with our friends, or we're having a party, or whatever it is, because we like to glamorize our life. We like our life to seem better than it is sometimes, and we do that so that we can fit in. We do that for society's approval of being accepted. And I really noticed this a lot when I moved to Alberta from New Brunswick. And so when I moved to Fort McMurray, Alberta, after I graduated in 2016, I realized very quickly that there was a certain mentality there. And this mentality is everywhere, but I very much noticed it in Fort Mac. And so in Fort McMurray, as if you've heard of Fort McMurray before, you know that it is a boom town. There is a lot of money. It is the oil field. There is just a lot of different sites, and a lot of people go there to get ahead, move from the East Coast, whatever it is. And there's basically this snapshot of the community of being that the women have to have all the best Lululemon and the best nails and the best eyelashes and the best hair and extensions and lip fillers and Botox and all these things. And when I first moved there, and first of all, when I was younger at around that age of 17, 18, I was very into sports. I was very much kind of a girly girl, but also tomboy-y, and I was sporty. And so this was like very icky and weird to me that everybody was just trying to be the same thing. But I realized very quickly that when you're not those things, people there will look at you very, very differently. And again, I don't want to encompass everyone as a whole, because that's definitely not true, and not everybody was like that. But as a collective, it was so far to the point that there was even memes on social media about it, right? Of everybody trying to be the same thing. And I, unfortunately, fell into the trap of that in some way, shapes, or forms. To the point that one day I was leaving the house to go to the grocery store and my mom literally said, "Wow, you look very Fort Mac right now." And I'll never forget that she said that, because it was the first time in my life that it kind of bothered me that she said that, because I'm someone who's always wanted to be unique, wanted to stand out. If I wanted to wear something to school, even if I thought nobody else would think it was cool, I would wear it anyway. And I just always went outside the social norm because I just very much grew up not caring. I was just unapologetically myself. And so for the first time, I noticed that I was falling into that trap because I was being influenced by my coworkers, by people I was going to school with, by my basketball team, and the people that I was surrounded with. And I realized that it all happened very subconsciously, of just little things, tweak by tweak. And as that was happening, I was very much moving away from who Jessie was at the core. I was beginning to get around people that really weren't in alignment, people that really were not serving my life, and frankly turned out to be very toxic. But when you slowly, incrementally change who you are to fit in, and you don't realize that you're doing that, because the thing is we often don't, you realize how far away you get from your true self. And so I had gotten so far away from my true self that I was dating people and hanging around people that, now that I look back, I literally cringe, because I'm just like, what was going on? What was I thinking? And I think that we are also guilty of this. And when I was reflecting on this episode, I realized that it's something that we all have in common more than we think. We all try to fit in. We all try to be this one thing. And so my goal of today's episode is to dive into reasons why that's so toxic for us, and the benefits of being who you are at the core, no matter who or what is around. And I do just want to preface, before I dive into the reasons, is that it's very, very hard to live a fulfilled life when you're not being yourself, right? Asking yourself those questions of, do I really like the outfit I'm wearing? Do I really like doing this? Do I really believe that? Do I really enjoy that, right? Asking yourself, are you just doing things because the folks around you are doing it and you're afraid to say no? Because that's a whole other conversation in and of itself, is if we're allowing others to influence us because we're afraid to step outside of that. If we're afraid of being lonely or losing friends because we're afraid that they won't accept us if we're genuinely who we are. But my message for you is that, wouldn't you rather be surrounded by people that accept you for who you are? How much less exhausting it is to just show up and be organically yourself. Think of how much effort and mind space you have to pretend to be somebody else when you're around certain people. Right? I can think of so many people on the top of my head that do this so frequently. And when they're just hanging around me, they're great. But when we get around other people, I don't recognize them. And so asking yourself if that is you, or if you have those people in your life, because they're everywhere. And we all do this, again, in some way, shape, or form. But there are severities of this. There's severities of feeling like we need to be somebody else in order to fit in or to be accepted, and so we're not lonely. And so without further ado, let's dive into some reasons of why it's so important to always be who you are. So my first reason is that it allows you to live in alignment with your unique values and beliefs. And so going back to what I just mentioned, I want you to ask yourself if you've ever been around people and they acted differently. And you almost always know when this is happening, and you almost feel crummy about it. You can tell when someone's not organically being themselves, and it just makes you feel kind of weird, because you know what they're like behind the scenes, and you know what they're like when you're one-on-one, but when you're around other people, they act so much differently. And I remember witnessing this a lot when I was in college, especially around girls, when they would get around certain women, or when guys would come around, they would just completely pivot who they were. And it really threw me off a lot of the times, because I just genuinely didn't understand that mentality. And again, this episode isn't about me being narcissistic or saying that I'm not guilty of this, because as I just mentioned, when I moved to Alberta, I very much fell into that trap. But even outside of the clothes and the hair and the makeup, it's who you are at the core. Are you stepping away from your values and your beliefs when you're around certain people? Because when we have identified and we know who we are at the core, and we know what our beliefs and our values are, knowing your values and beliefs and living in alignment can be a really lonely thing for a while. It can be really, really lonely, but it will bring you closer to your purpose and to those in alignment. I have spent the last several months pretty much isolating myself because there was just people in my life that were making me feel some type of way, and I felt like I was stemming away from my true self. I felt like I had to pretend I was someone else, or even worse so, whenever I got around those people, I was a very toxic version of myself. And again, these are all things that only I can take the fault of because only I have responsibility for my actions. But it's about recognizing when we do that and knowing when it's time to intervene and identify if a relationship is toxic, right? Maybe you don't realize that it's toxic, but I'm hoping, my goal is that when you hear this, something sits with you. Something will stick out for you to identify for yourself of the areas of your life that maybe you are either shifting, or maybe some friendships in your life that you're just not really feeling good about. And just know that that is okay. As I always preface, it doesn't mean that those relationships and the things that we did not serve us at one time in our life or another. But it simply means that as we grow and evolve, we shift. We grow. Our values and our standards and our beliefs and our things shift. And that's okay. That doesn't dishonor those people that have been in our life, in your life, in my life. I still very much care, and I'm so thankful for those friendships and those periods of my life, because had that not happened, first of all, I wouldn't be on here talking with you all about it. And so knowing that that is okay, it's okay to validate that something might not be going well, but also honor that at one point in your life, it was serving you. And so that is my first point for you all. To allow yourself to live in alignment with your values and beliefs. Because when you know your values and beliefs and your self-worth with high awareness, that is key, with high awareness, you will live in accordance to that and live a much more fulfilled life. Much more fulfilled. It is so much more fulfilling to have a conversation with someone being on the same page. When your values are left and their values are right, that is okay. But if you are finding yourself going right to meet them and forgetting about your left, I hope this is landing and making sense. You're only beginning to hurt your own self-worth. And also recognizing if you are subconsciously causing other people to do that. Or when people get around you, do they feel like they need to become you? Do they feel like they need to level up to you? And again, there's pros and cons to all of this, right? It's a teeter-totter of finding that happy balance, because things are going to step over. We're going to naturally adapt the way we change depending on who we're around, right? I act differently around my partner than I do around my parents. That's just subconsciously what we do, right? We act differently. However, my point of today's episode is staying true to who you are at the core. Your inner, your feelings, your emotions, who you are, right? We all know who we are at the center, and that's where we can't drift away from. All the other things are just external. My second reason of why it is crucial to stay who you are at the core is because it allows you to have focus and direction. Because when you are always yourself, you are more likely to have focus and direction in your life. But if you're always agreeing to others' expectations, you'll lose sight of your own direction. Being yourself no matter who's around means being able to say no and have boundaries, right? How often do we say yes to things because we just feel the pressure like we have to, right? When we do that, again, our self-worth is taking a hit, but we're also dwindling away from our true self. And so that's happened a lot with me with my podcast, where there's days that I have set to record, and if something comes up and I have to say no, if I didn't have that clear focus and direction and I said yes, I would be letting myself down because I wouldn't be recording. I would be behind in content, and that would take a hit on my self-esteem, right? So when you're able to know your direction and your focus, when you live in alignment and you stay true to who you are, it allows you to uphold that, to uphold those boundaries, right? To be able to say no, not just saying yes because you feel like you need to. And so again, this resonates deeply, deeply with me right now, because I have a very small friend circle. And that's because I found myself overcommitting and veering my path to keep the peace, which in return hurt my own growth and self-worth. And we all go through life in that cycle if we're not aware that it's happening, if we don't bring awareness that it's happening. And you are so deserving to stick to your things that you know that you need to get done, want to get done, desire your hopes and dreams. And people that are supposed to be there for that and want to be there for that are going to be. And those that don't respect boundaries and respect when you say no and respect when you can't do things, that is a whole other conversation in and of itself. Because if those people are not supportive of your goals and are not supportive of your life, are they really people that you want to have in your circle? Are they people that you want to have control of your energy and of your time? Our time is our most limited thing, and if we are investing that in people that don't really care about us at the core, we are only disserving ourselves. And so the second point is one that is so strong because it happens so often. I see this happen a lot even with adolescents. I work for the school board of saying that they need to take a particular thing in college because that's what their parents want them to take. How detrimental is that to your own self-worth and what you know your purpose to be? A large part of my podcast is about finding your soul's purpose. How are you ever going to discover, unlock your soul's purpose if you're constantly going with the flow of other people? We are not supposed to all be doing the same thing, or we would all be doing the same thing. And so knowing what your core is, where you need to be, where your priorities are, have that focus, have that direction, and do not let anyone take that away. If that means being lonely for a while, if that means being by yourself for a while, if that means cutting ties in certain relationships, then that's what that might mean. That's up for you to decide. That's up for you to decide how far you're willing to go to give yourself that self-respect and self-love that you're so deserving of. Because the right people will come along. I know that the right people will come into my life. I have to be patient, right? But I know that if I stayed around the same circles, I was the one that was feeling crummy. I was the one feeling less than. I was the one feeling unseen, unappreciated, unheard, whatever. And I would rather be by myself and give myself that validation than feel like I'm pulling for it and tugging it out of people. Nothing in your life should be forced. And if you feel like you're forcing these things, it might be a good sign that it's not in alignment. And so that is my second point for you all. It allows you to have focus and direction. Number 3 is one that I am so passionate about, but something that I don't think the regular mainstream media would ever talk about. But a huge reason of why it's so important to always stay true to you is because it allows you to raise your vibration. It allows you to raise who you are as a human being. You can tell those times when you get around people that you feel less than, you feel exhausted, you want to go home, you don't really want to commit. The reason for that is because, as I've mentioned multiple times on my podcast, everything is a frequency, everything is a vibration, everything is an energy. And when we are not an energetic match for something, we are going to feel that at the core. And so if you've never seen the frequency chart before, I'm just going to preface this. So basically how it works is there's a chart and there's a bunch of emotions and feelings on it. And depending on the emotion, it gives you a frequency of what that emotion would be. And so I pulled up a couple. So for desire, it operates out of a 125. And just so you know, the highest on the spectrum, so you can kind of get the wave here, the highest is enlightenment. And enlightenment operates at a 700 plus frequency. Desire operates at 125. Guilt operates at a 30. Shame operates at a 20. And fear operates at 100. All of those together are lower than joy in and of itself, because joy operates at a 540. So if you can just think about that for a moment, that guilt and shame operate at a 30 and a 20. So think about those times you hang around those people that make you feel shame, make you feel guilt, make you feel fear, make you feel icky and just, think of how much your own vibration and frequency is taking a hit. And people often say when I get around people, I'm such an introvert, so when I come home I need to nap. But what if it's just that those people that you're hanging around with aren't raising your vibration? What if those people are depleting you? And that's another thing. Are the people you're surrounding yourself with depleting you or encouraging you and uplifting you? Because those right people and people in alignment, you're going to feel your energy raise, right? You're going to feel that peace, that joy, that enlightenment. You're going to be operating and shining and nourished and just elevating. But if we're operating around those people that operate at a 30 or a 20, guess what? So are you. And so that is my third point for you guys, is that it allows you to raise your vibration when you stay true to who you are. Because if you're in shame and guilt and fear, you're operating very low. So notice your vibe around certain people. Your soul will always speak for you. You just have to be willing to listen and honor it. Your body knows when it's out of alignment. Your body knows when it's operating at a low frequency because we can feel it. We know it. But it's about honoring that for ourselves. And also, on top of this point, knowing that if you're operating very high and you even walk into a workspace or a setting or whatever, it's so important for us to validate our vibration and not let others interfere with that. Because other people that aren't an energetic match will try to pull that down from you. They'll try to bring you down off that subconsciously because they're operating so low. And so keep that vibe high. Do the things that make you just flourish. Do the things that lift your soul and allow you to operate at the highest of your capability. Right? We need so much more of that in our world. And we are all an energetic match for certain people and certain things in our life. And so don't get stuck in the areas that aren't in alignment and aren't right for you. So that is my third point, is when you stick to who you are, it allows you to raise your vibration, but I also want to throw in, it allows you to protect your vibration and your frequency. My fourth point for you guys on why it's so important that we always stay true to who we are is because we're all unique. We're all so unique. And we're not supposed to all be the same. If we were, we would all be born the exact same way. We wouldn't have different colors of hair, different colors of eyes, different colors of skin. We would all wear the same clothes. We would all do the same job. We would all make the same money. We would all eat the same things. We would do the same things. We're all meant to be unique. No two one of us, just like snowflakes, are the same. And that is such a beautiful, beautiful thing, but I think that we forget that, and we forget the beauty that is within that. We try so hard to be like other people that we forget that it's okay to be unique. And I thought of this analogy last night while I was brainstorming for today's episode, and I hope that it lands or just makes some sense. And so basically when we try to match others, it's like putting a piece of a puzzle in the wrong place. So if you're building a puzzle and you know how frustrating it can be once you have the border done, you're doing the inside. Our life is just like that. If we're trying to put our unique piece of the puzzle into just any place in the puzzle, it's not going to fit because each shape is so unique and it fits with certain things exactly where and when it's supposed to. And it might go with the puzzle, but it's not going to fit everywhere. And that is just like us. We are no different. And we hold so much pressure on ourselves to be like others that we forget how unique we are. We forget to embody and embrace our uniqueness. And I think that we all strive so far away from our purpose because we're not trying to be unique. We're trying to just go with the flow, go with the status quo, right? And I think that oftentimes people feel like they can't find their purpose. They can't find their reason for being here. They can't find their passions. And that's because they're operating out of a headspace that isn't really them. Sometimes it's about unlearning everything we've learned and coming back to our root, because we're all here for a purpose. Whether you are spiritual or religious or whatever it is you preach, we are all here for a purpose. We are all put here for a purpose, because if we weren't, why would we have been chosen over so many other possibilities of life? You are meant to be here. There is a reason that you are here. And furthermore, there's a reason you're listening to this podcast. There was something within you that was itched to listen to this. And I hope that you know that you are so unique and you are meant to be unique. The world needs more people to be unique and to stand out. And this is almost impossible because we all try to be the same. It's important to stay true to you because we each have such unique gifts and purposes. And we often lose sight of that because we're too focused on matching others. And it's okay that we learn from others and that others inspire us. Right? I have lots of podcasters that I am inspired by, but in no way, shape, or form do I want to be them. I want to be myself. I want to share my own unique experiences and voice with the world. And if I'm just putting out the same content that somebody else is, A, that's boring, but B, I can't duplicate that. I can't duplicate somebody else. But we all try to duplicate. And yes, there is formulas and ways that we can evolve and ways that we can learn from others and to duplicate in certain areas, but our personality and who we are at the core cannot be duplicated. And so it's so important to stay true to who you are because it allows you to be unique, your own unique self. I started a part-time job at a golf course here, and I've had a couple of my coworkers just say such beautiful things about me as a person. And I think that that's so beautiful and touched my heart more than I think they'll ever realize, because I decided when I started that job, I was just going to be organically myself, right? And naturally, by tendency, I am a very bubbly person. I am a very outgoing person. I'm very conversational. I like to see the best for people. I like to validate if somebody's having a bad day. I like to hear people. I like to joke around. And I noticed that there were certain people in my life that I wasn't able to be myself around because I felt like I had to put on a different shoe. And so knowing that it's okay to be unique and to stand out, and that the world needs more of that. How often do we notice the people that are being unique more than the people that are fitting in? Right? If we're walking in the mall and we see someone wearing something completely different, whoa, it draws our attention. But if we see someone wearing a black pair of Lululemon leggings and a hoodie, we're like, oh, cool. Right? Our brain registers that as normal. But who set normal? Who set what that is supposed to look like? Whenever I see folks being so unapologetically themselves, first of all, that is when we operate the highest, and we are drawn to that. We are drawn to the people that speak from their heart, are creative out of their heart, express with their heart. That is what the world needs more of. And so that is my fourth point, is that it allows you to be unique. It allows you to be who you are and be okay with that. It's okay to be weird. It's okay to be goofy. It's okay to be whatever. I love weird. I love goofy. Right? We all love that. We love when things are different. But when it comes to ourselves, we think that we could never be that because we wouldn't be accepted. But imagine our life if we all just stopped caring so much about what other people think and just honed in and embraced who we know that we are and who we want to be. Are you going to regret leaving this world being true to yourself, or are you going to leave this world regretting living a life that is not true to you? Something to think about. My fifth and final point on why it's just crucial to be who you are, no matter who's around or what's around, is because it allows you to live optimally into your greatest potential. And so I think that all of my points really do kind of stem into this one. Because the whole point of this is that being who you are equals living a life optimally and with the most fulfillment. Because being who you are at the core and honing in on that allows you to live an optimal and fulfilled life. Why? Because you're living a life of alignment. And isn't that what we're all here to do? Aren't we all here to live a life of alignment true to us? Because living in alignment with your purpose brings a deeper sense of inner peace and tranquility. Right? And the thing is that the truth will always come out. And what I mean by that is you will get to a time in your life where you reflect and say, whoa, who am I? Right? I remember this moment for me like it was yesterday. And unfortunately for me, getting around certain people and doing certain things led me to gaining quite a bit of weight. And mind you, this was after I had gone through some traumatic stuff in college. However, one day I had weighed myself and it was like my whole last 2 years flashed before my eyes, and I was like, whoa, I'm not being true to myself. I'm not living a life true to me or the life that I think that I want, desire, and deserve. And so I made pivotal points in my life at that time, and I'm so thankful that I did, because that veered me closer to people that were in alignment. And that veered me to where I am right now in this second. And so the fact that it allows you to live more optimally into your greatest potential is such a beautiful thing. And that is, again, the whole goal of life. And if this episode triggered you in some way, shape, or form, or you're just feeling a certain type of way when you listen to this, I'm learning recently to view my triggers and things differently. And I encourage you to do the same in this moment, because if this is causing you to feel resentment towards me, causing you to feel resentment towards yourself, towards people in your life, that's your soul and body's way of communicating with you that something might have landed, right? It's about bringing awareness to that. And I think that is what I say most on this podcast, is bring awareness to. But so much of life is just that. It's bringing awareness, bringing cognitive awareness to your thinking, to your body, to your acting, to your life. When we can bring awareness and get honest and reflect and almost watch our life like a movie, we're able to see these things. And so that is my fifth and final reason for you guys of why it's so important to stay true to who we are, because it allows you to live optimally and to your greatest potential. It allows you to flourish. It allows you to make decisions and do things without caring what other people think. It allows you to stand out without caring what people think. It allows you to take leaps of faith and to go for things without valuing the opinions of others and trusting your gut and your intuition. That is how we grow. Look at some of the greatest, most successful people in life. Oftentimes those things happen because someone didn't see their potential or someone let them down or a traumatic thing happened. But when they stayed true to themselves, they found success. Steve Jobs is a great example of this. Steve Jobs was one of the first inventors of Apple, the Macintosh with calligraphy. He was fired from Apple. He was the owner and the developer of Apple and was fired from that business. And through that, in his speech, he expressed how lost he felt, and then eventually all the dots clicked, and he actually was the one who started Pixar and Toy Story and was then rehired on by Apple. And so that just shows that someone so unique, and there's furthermore backstory on Steve Jobs of how he dropped out of college and went to a calligraphy course and how everything happened, but how all the odds were stacked against him, but how he stayed true to himself and followed his desires and intuition and allowed himself to live optimally into his greatest potential. And you are no different. If you're at a point in your life right now where you just feel stuck and like hopeless and there's nowhere to go, know that it's often in those times that greatness will surface. You'll reflect back on this time in 5 years from now and think, wow, so much has changed. But try your absolute darn hardest to make sure that that shift is decisions and things that you want at your core, things that your soul's needing, things that your heart is pulling you to do, not things that you're doing to make anybody else happy, because that's not sustainable and that's not living true to you. I've lived my life and know many people that live their lives not true to themselves. It's unsustainable and it's unfulfilling. I believe most of us who are not fulfilled, it's because we're not living in alignment or living a life true to you. Ask yourself where you're at with this. Sometimes we might not realize it's even happening, especially if we've done it as a way to protect ourselves and to keep ourselves safe. We often think fitting in will make us happier, but if we're not being true to our core beliefs and values, we'll never truly be happy. I hope that this podcast episode inspires you to reflect on that for yourself, to reflect on where you're at with this, to reflect on how far you may have stemmed away from your core and your true self. And know that at any time you can turn around and head back. At any time you can put your foot down, set boundaries, rewire, pivot your life. You have the capability to do that, but you have to be the one to do it. It takes courage, it takes time, it takes commitment, but I promise you, your life in 10 years, 5 years, whatever, will look so much different, and you'll be so much more thankful for living a life true to you than living a life to make other people happy. I truly hope you all enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next week. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode of Tiny Talks. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at JessieBrown13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next week. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.